Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Uh, for this roundtable, we're going to be discussing the future of architecture. I'd like to thank all of our keynote presenters, Gideon, Midori, and John, for your talk, and welcome Martin Rapos to our roundtable panel. Martin is the CEO of Ainoura.
Everybody.
Just a couple quick things before we get started. For the audience out there, we had a little technical difficulties at the beginning of things, and so we're running slightly tight on time. The roundtable scheduled for around 20 minutes. We're going to push it to maybe 15 minutes and say go over 5 minutes or so into the next keynote presentations. Hope that's fine for everyone. To start this discussion here, I'm going to jump into the questions, and I guess I have one first question here, and that's looking at how has the experience of COVID-19 influenced your thoughts on the role that architecture will play in helping us to mitigate kind of the turbulence that we seem to be going through right now? And I guess to start off, let's jump to Martin, since he hasn't given a keynote presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to check, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Cool, perfect. Yeah, no, for us, so my firm, Ocular, is a 3D visualization platform, right? So we're helping architects and developers to visualize. And what I think was the biggest change since March, really, is that we see a lot more need for configuration and flexibility. So whereas before we were hearing a lot of demand for processing of existing 3D models in lots of details, what we hear now is less focus on the details, which of course is related to cost cutting and quick turnaround, and more of configurability. So the ability to change your visualizations quickly. And this is my very narrow aspect of things, obviously. But that's what I'm hearing from architects, mainly from developers, though, who are reconsidering their plans, who are reshaping their pipelines, for engineering firms that are helping people to get back into their offices, that kind of stuff. So a lot of need for configuration and for quick setup changes.
Thank you. How about you, Gideon? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we try to push the envelope with this porous idea of buildings, and strangely enough, now that resonates more, that people understand that they need more places to be outside, and that being outside is good, and you cannot make simply a tower where there's only an elevator, because currently the elevators, they don't work well. So yeah, it is complicated. Like said before, developers are really checking their pipelines. But it also brings new opportunities to push these kind of ideals.
Perfect. And what are your thoughts on that, John?
I think that this has accelerated things that we were looking at that maybe companies were preparing for in a five-year plan, 10-year plan. Office design, we were already creating offices less as a series of desks and cubicles and more amenity to attract work from home, gearing up for a work from home culture. Obviously, we've been forced into a work from home culture, and so it's affected how we design residence too, to facilitate working from home. So we're seeing the two typologies of sort of commercial and residential, which were already starting to blend, elements of each, entering each other, now really accelerated, and we're starting to think of this as a continuum. You can't really design residential or office in isolation.
All right. And Midori?
I think it's interesting, it is a client start listening what we are doing before. That's quite interesting things, and then good for us type of things. And also the clients are shifting towards the human center to more life center, including humans, more green recovery things. They understand, and that has a bigger voice now, which in our master plan in other different countries now we are doing, which is like a right direction we should go for. And then also the like workplace presentation I just did is no longer the box question, but urban question. And if it's urban question, we can do much more things for this environment, I think.
Mm-hmm. And can you give us a few examples of things that you can do for this environment once you start to change the question?
I think it's a connection between my video shows that how much space we use for car. We researching mobility. Can we put autonomous car in a underground, creating park there? Those idea was like, oh, okay, that's nice, la la la. But now it's getting reality. What if that's much more organized way of mobility network? Maybe partially underground, then our walkability question in the city totally different. How many years we looking at the car related master plan city? Yeah. That's totally different. I think that will change. We can use this opportunity at this time.
And so I guess looking at that kind of builds on something that Gideon said earlier, I think, and kind of the porousness of buildings and starting to look at that. And I wonder if that now becomes a trend where you start to rethink of buildings within the urban fabric, within the urban environment, and how you begin to integrate those a bit more to rethink the city, not necessarily as something that is geared towards getting a car from one place to the next, but something that's more of people-centric, and how you get people outdoors and provide more options for living life instead of just going from one building to the next building to the next building. How is that kind of what you're seeing? And I'll direct this one to Gideon since I was working off of your comments for that question.
Yeah, indeed. I completely agree with what has been said, that this car-centered world is now changing. No, in Seoul, there was a great mayor who came in and said, like, yeah, we're going to cut one of the main roads into the city. We're simply going to block it. It's not for cars anymore. And then all traffic advisors were like, whoa, 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 whoa. And so, yeah, that's it. The more roads you make, the more cars you have. So it will always be a problem. So don't worry about it. And now there's a fantastic park there, and people love it. But it's a mindset. Because if your mindset is like every car needs to go somewhere, yeah, then you only get asphalt.
And a more walkable network in the city to be created, which has been, it's almost like I was thinking always like American like a university campus. It's very, very walkable, and they have a different type of discovery. And then that kind of bring back to neighborhood and city. That would be wonderful. I think your country, Gideon, is doing very well. And then I think London should follow.
Yeah. I guess to pick up on that, John, what are you seeing within New York and in the U.S. in terms of kind of the conversation that we've been having and the developing trends?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what's happened is a lot of the activity has been forced outside. The ability to access fresh air, nature, has become a premium, and I think that has changed behaviorally. What people's expectations are. I mean, to Gideon's point, the idea of this sort of hermetic tight box with an elevator isn't going to work anymore. And you know, the facades have to operate better. They need to be occupiable. They need to have vegetation. They need to be a window into outdoors. But you know, like we're seeing is all the restaurants have forced activity out onto the streets. And of course, weather permitting, it's limited in our climate, but it's the byproduct of that is a really increased vitality on the street. If you don't have access directly to outdoors, the activity has been forced out, and that's a positive, and hopefully that's something that forces our design considerations.
Yeah. Do you see, because I've seen some of the news and kind of how the restaurants have taken over the streets in New York. Yeah. Do you see that becoming a permanent fixture where their restaurants actually starting to build permanent outdoor enclosures to take over the streets, and that might actually be the default moving forward?
I think so. I mean, again, off Midori and Gideon's point, that the more autonomous cars can go, the more these districts. I think maybe the whole avenue might not get shut down, but we're going to start selecting parts and making start dedicating streets and roadways back to pedestrian. That seems to be a trend. It's really well received, and it's been incredibly effective. Yeah. So maybe it starts happening in blocks, and then neighborhoods, and then larger scale.
What do you think of art, especially street art? Because I've seen, so for instance, in Seattle, we've been working with GGLO designers to actually create this virtual art. And now I have multiple cities asking me for the same. And I don't know if this is a trend or if this is something, just very temporary, as people are, they need to kind of revive the community.
I think that's really because virtual art is very interesting opportunity in a way. As an architect side, I don't have to do much, right? So it's there. It's almost like a low tech, but it's a high tech version. So it's, I think similar to like Pokemon Go. It's a virtual setting, but you can participate the city very well, same time. I think that is the key in the future. Yeah. And then we are looking at that in the public realm opportunity in Tokyo, actually, similar way. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I've just been given our 5 minutes notice about 30 seconds or so ago. So for this, I'd like to go through and just have some final closing thoughts from each of you in terms of what you see as the next steps for architecture right now. So let's start with Gideon, and then I'll just go down the line.
I think architecture will be more human, more open, more inclusive, more social.
Midori?
I think I add that one to the environment on top, with human and the environment together, and it is a network, the people, social network, and the environmental network we can create better.
Nice, thank you, John.
I think it'll become more, as other industries, more higher quality, more accessible, and more available to all, more equity in the built environment.
Yeah, and Martin.
Yeah, let's see. So I think and hope that the relationship between the investors and architects and the real estate developers and architects will improve in this environment, as there's increased need for proper thinking, conceptual thinking, in order to arrive to a very good result. And again, the need for flexibility, right? So I see this as a hopefully improved relationship and more value that architects can bring to the table, and more value that is appreciated by the investors. Which of course, for large architects like you, John, or Gideon, or Midori, maybe this is not so much of a problem. But I also see a lot of small architectural firms that feel underappreciated, not constrained, and maybe you've experienced this earlier in your careers. So I feel this can actually change, and then obviously visualization. So improved and enhanced visualizations of projects early on, beyond just renderings, and that's where I come in with our firm. We've been seeing a lot of increased demand for AR, for instance. So I see this as one of the PropTech trends.
Great. Thank you for that, Martin. Thank you for that, panelists, as well, and for all the attendees. That's the end of our Future of Architecture panel session. Please stay tuned. We have our next keynote speaker is on deck and is about ready to go, looking at the future of smart buildings. Thank you all, and thank you, panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you.